some hundreds were imprisoned or treated in an unseemly manner, being forced into employments unbecoming their state and exposed to scorn and derision. Then, while numbers of ecclesiastics were exiled or constrained in some other way to take refuge in the general government, many others were transferred to concentration camps. At the beginning of October 1941, the priests from the dioceses of the Vartigau detained in Dachau already numbered several hundreds, but their number increased considerably in that month following a sharp intensification of police measures which culminated in the imprisonment and deportation of further hundreds of ecclesiastics. Entire Kreiser districts remained thus completely deprived of clergy. In the city of Poznan itself, the spiritual care of some 200,000 Catholics remained in the hands of not more than 4 priests. No less painful was the fate reserved for the regular clergy. Many religious were shot or otherwise killed. The great majority of the others were imprisoned, deported, or expelled. In the same way, far-reaching measures were taken against the institutions preparing candidates for the ecclesiastical state. The diocesan seminaries of Gniezno and Poznan, of Vladistavia, and of Lodz were closed. The seminary in Poznan for the training of priests destined to work among Polish Catholics abroad was also closed. The novitiates and houses of formation of the religious orders and congregations were closed. Not even the nuns were able to continue their charitable activities without molestation. For them were set up a special concentration camp at Bojanowo, where towards the middle of 1941 about 400 sisters were interned and employed in manual labor. To a representation of the Holy See made through the Apostolic Nunciature in Berlin, your Reich Ministry for Foreign Affairs replied in the memorandum giving the number of September 28 of the same year that it was only question of a temporary measure taken with the consent of the Reichslieutenant for Vaterland in order to supply the lack of housing for Polish Catholic sisters. In the same memorandum, it was admitted that as a result of reorganization of charitable institutions, many Catholic sisters were without employment.
At the time that document was sent to...
That was the defendant von Ribbentrop.
Ribbentrop.
I turn to page 4, the 10th paragraph of the English text. Page 5, 4th paragraph of the German text. The use of the Polish language in sacred functions and even in the sacrament of penance was forbidden. You find that, sir?
Which page you on?
That's page 4, just below the middle of the page. Paragraph beginning, the use of the Polish language in sacred functions. And even in the sacrament of penance was forbidden. Moreover, and this is a matter worthy of special mention, and is at variance with the natural law and with the dispositions accepted by the legal systems of all nations, for the celebration of marriage between Poles, the minimum age limit was fixed at 28 years for men and 25 years for women. Catholic action was so badly hit as to be completely destroyed. The National Institute, which was at the head of the whole Catholic action movement in Poland, was suppressed. As a result, all the associations belonging to it, which were flourishing, as well as all Catholic cultural, charity, and social service institutions, were abolished. In the whole of the Warthegau, there is no longer any Catholic press and not even a Catholic bookshop. Grave measures were repeatedly taken with regard to ecclesiastical property. Many of the churches closed to public worship were turned over to profane uses. From such an insult, not even the cathedrals of Gniezno, Poznan, Władysławia, and Lodz were spared. Episcopal residences were confiscated. The real estate belonging to the seminaries, convents, diocesan museums, libraries, and church funds were confiscated or sequestered. The administrative regulations published by the Lieutenant's Office for the application of the Ordinance of September 13, 1941, made the situation of the Catholics in that region still more difficult. For example, on November 19, 1941, came a decree of the Reichslieutenant by which, among other things, it was set forth that as from the previous September 13th, the property of the former juridical persons of the Roman Catholic Church should pass over to the Römisch-Katholischen Kirche Deutscher Nationalität in Reichsgau-Vaterland, insofar as, on the request of the above-mentioned Religionsgesellschaft, such property shall be recognized by the Reichslieutenant as non-Polish property. In virtue of this decree, practically all the goods of the Catholic Church in the Warthegau were lost.
And before that is begun, the chief prosecutors for the United States and Great Britain wish, with the permission of the tribunal, to make 4 points perfectly clear. 1, the object of this part of the case is to collect, for the benefit first of the members of the tribunal, and secondly, for the defense counsel concerned, the evidence against each defendant under counts 1 and 2, which has been presented by the American and British delegations. Otherwise, it would be easy, among the many documents already before the court, to miss relevant pieces of evidence which the tribunal might wish to consider and to which the defendants may wish to make a reply. This does not mean that the case against these defendants has in any way ended. Vital and important parts of the case remain concerning the actual atrocities, both war crimes and crimes against humanity. The evidence in regard to these will shortly be presented by the French delegation and the delegation of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. And when the massive documentation of these crimes is placed before the court, the French and Soviet delegations will have the opportunity of relating them to the individual defendants in the dock. It has been the desire of all the chief prosecutors to delimit as clearly as possible the evidence under the respective counts of the indictment. The documents in evidence, however, were not written with a view to this trial, and therefore many of them inevitably deal with offenses under more than one count. It is by reason of this alone that some overlapping and repetition necessarily exist. Similarly, it may occur that as the French and Soviet cases are developed, documents may come to light which bear on the common plan or the initiation of wars of aggression, or on other material connected with counts 1 and 2. The American and British delegations will welcome any addition to the evidence on these parts of the case, which such documents may provide, and gladly receive such reinforcement from their French and Soviet colleagues. With this explanation, I'm very grateful for